He had asked for half the money up front. He had asked for a description of my truck. The seventh was my wife sending $5,000 on a Cash App. The woman said the man in the thread was her brother. She said the woman in the thread was my wife. She said her husband had been sleeping with my wife for 14 months. I had 22 years running iron in this state, and I could not speak. It was a summer evening. My job site gates were already locked. She had driven 3 hours to find me before the weekend. The guard at the shack had radioed me before he let her out of her car. I want to tell you what was on those phones and how I lived through it. I will tell you what a Texas court does to a woman who pays $10,000, because what convicted my wife was not me. It was her own text. I am a crane operator out of a Gulf Coast local. I have been at it 22 years. I was 41 when this happened. I had been married 11 years. We have one daughter, 8 years old. I run a mobile crane on petrochemical work down on the coast. Pre-shift walk around, lift plan huddle, picks all day, boom down by dark. I was doing end of shift paperwork in the gate trailer. The guard came on the radio. He said a woman was at the gravel lot. He said she was asking for me by my full name and she had kids in the car. He said she would not say what it was about. I drove out to the gate. I had my FRC shirt on and my hard hat still on my head. She was leaning on the hood of a beige sedan. She asked me if I was the husband. I said I was. She put the 7 screenshots on the hood of my F-150, one at a time. She did not cry. She did not raise her voice. She said her husband was a personal trainer at the gym. My wife worked the front desk of that gym 4 nights a week. The affair had started 14 months back. She had found the messages on a family iPad, the iPad they used together, the one their kids used for cartoons. She said she had confronted her husband 2 hours before. She said he confessed and named a brother-in-law and a wrench. She drove straight to her brother's apartment. Her brother is broke, between jobs, with a record from 6 years back. He had been let go for stealing supplements. She said her brother opened the door, saw her face, and started crying. He handed her his phone without a fight. The thread between my wife and her brother went back 9 days. It started with my wife asking him if he still needed money. My wife had sent the second $5,000 the night before. The message right after said your wrench from the shop. The woman took screenshots of every text from her brother's phone. She drove straight to the Gulf Coast to find me. She did not call. She did not email. She said she did not know who was watching my phone at the house. I asked her if her brother knew she had come. She said her brother was sitting in her car with her 2 kids. I walked over and looked through the back window. He was a heavy man in a gray hoodie. He sat hunched against the door with his eyes closed. I asked her what she wanted from me. She said she wanted me to live to sign divorce papers. She wanted her marriage on a courthouse table, not a hospital one. She had brought her brother because she wanted me to see him. Her brother would walk into a sheriff's office in the morning. She was not going to lose a brother and a husband in one night. I did not know this woman. I had never seen her car. I had never heard her name before she said it on the gravel. But she had driven all that way with 2 kids in the back seat. She had done it because she did not want to be a widowmaker by silence. I told her I needed an hour. I told her I had a buddy of mine who got divorced last year. I told her to give me a minute. She said she would wait in her car. Her brother was not going anywhere. I got behind the wheel of my F-150 and did not turn the key. I looked at the 7 screenshots through the windshield. I thought about my daughter asleep at her grandmother's. I thought about every gym night she had named for 14 months. I thought about the wrench she had named. She had picked it off my pegboard, plain steel, 10 inches, with a chip in the jaw. She had taken a photo of it on her phone. She had sent it to her brother. That photo was screenshot 8. I had not seen it until the woman pulled it from her phone. The woman said her brother had asked which wrench. My wife had answered with a picture. I did not call my wife. I did not call my daughter's grandmother. I called him back. I told him I needed his attorney's name. I told him why. He said the attorney was a woman, $400 an hour. She had been at this for just over 15 years. He gave me her number. He told me not to go home that night. He told me to put a chain hotel on a card my wife had no access to. I told him my wife had access to every card I had. He said, get a prepaid card and load it with cash. I drove to a gas station and bought a $500 prepaid card. The woman and her brother followed me to a substation 40 miles north. I told her the attorney would handle it from here. She put her phone away. I drove to a chain hotel, one exit off the interstate. I checked in with my new card. I did not eat. I called my daughter's grandmother. I said I would be working an overnight pour. She did not ask any questions. I did not sleep. My buddy's attorney called me back the next morning. She said I had a window of 3 or 4 days. The deputies were going to act fast. Once they did, my wife was going to know. Before that, my wife was going to act normal. I had to act normal too. Her first rule was no confrontation, ever. Rule 2 was every dollar she still controlled would vanish. Rule 3 was every word about this happens in her office. She would meet me at her office that afternoon. Bring the 7 screenshots. Bring the chain hotel receipt and a list of joint accounts. Bring screenshot 8, the one with the wrench. Do not stop at the house. Buy a clean phone at any big box. Forward calls from the old phone to the new one. I did all of it. I sat in her conference room in the FRC shirt from last night. She was about my mother's age. She had steel gray hair and reading glasses on a chain. She read every screenshot before she said a word. She asked me one question. She asked if I wanted to stay married. I said no. She said good. What was in those texts was not a marriage. What my wife had done was a felony under Texas law. Soliciting a first-degree felony is itself a second-degree felony. First-degree assault under Texas law needs a deadly weapon. A 10-inch steel wrench is a deadly weapon under Texas law. The text named the wrench. The wrench made the charge stand up. Sentencing range, 2 to 20 years in state prison. Texas law requires corroboration. I had it 7 times over on the hood. The next step was the detective. Next would come a divorce petition served on a work week morning. She would handle the petition. The detective would handle the rest. The woman at my gate had given them a gift. She had walked her brother into a substation the night she came to my gate. The brother was already cooperating and naming my wife. My wife had used a burner phone. Her brother had used his personal one. That asymmetry was the prosecutor's whole case. A forensic tool called Celebrite would pull every deleted text. Her instruction, go back to work and act like nothing had changed. Call her every night from the clean phone. Do not tell my daughter anything until she said I could. I asked her about money. She said, Texas community property is not 50-50. A Texas court divides on what is just and right. After one spouse pays $10,000 for a beating, just and right is not 50-50. A 1998 case called Schlueter named this fraud on the community. The court would add the $10,000 back into the community on paper. The $10,000 would then come off my wife's side of the column. A 1981 case called Murph lets adultery and dissipation count. She told me I had 3 of 3 on the page. She had 15 years in family law. She had never had 3 of 3 in one case: drink water, eat, and drive to a different hotel tonight. I did what she told me. I went back to the job site the next morning before dawn. I climbed up into the cab and did the walk around. I called my wife on the clean phone from the cab. I told her I was on a forced overnight at the plant. I said I would be home in the next couple of days. She said, okay, baby, drive safe. That is what she said. She said it the same way she had said it for 11 years. She said it 2 days after the second $5,000 went out on her Cash App. I set 13 panels that day. I called the attorney from the second hotel that night. She said the detective had pulled the brother's phone in a consent search. The warrant for my wife's phone was already in front of a judge. Deputies were on standby for the arrest. Her brother had buried the burner in a drainage ditch. A deputy had walked the ditch in the morning. The deputy had pulled the burner out in 20 minutes. The burner was at a state lab for Celebrite. I had 3 more days at the most. When she said go, I would not be going home. I would meet a process server at the courthouse. I would sign the petition and stay gone. My wife would be cuffed before she knew of the divorce papers. That morning came earlier than she had told me. She called me before dawn from her car. Deputies were rolling on my house in 9 minutes. The warrant had cleared overnight. She had been waiting for the sheriff's call all night. I needed to leave the job site and drive to the courthouse now. The petition was already at the clerk. The server was at the parking lot. The other wife had walked into the substation with him hours earlier. Her brother had given a full statement under oath. He had described the wrench, the cash, the dates, the burner. My wife had no idea any of it had happened. I drove to the county courthouse. I met the server in the lot before the courthouse opened. I signed 3 places and initialed 8. She handed me a copy of the petition in a manila envelope. She walked away. I sat on the courthouse steps and watched the sun come over the dome. The attorney called me back. She said the deputies were at my front door. My wife had answered the door in a robe with coffee in her hand. My wife had asked the deputies if it was about the daughter. The deputies had told her to put the coffee on the counter. The deputies had told her to turn around. The cuffs had been on before her coffee got cold. My wife had not said a word the whole ride to county. The bail hearing was the next afternoon. The prosecutor was asking $250,000 bond and no firearms. The magistrate would grant an emergency PO at first appearance. The order would run 91 days. The order would bar contact and proximity to the house and to me. The order mandated firearm surrender and license suspension. The order would also add GPS monitoring on her ankle. My wife's parents had been called and were already on the road. Her parents would post the bond. Her parents would sign a property pledge with the bond. Her parents would clear her things out in 72 hours. I was not to be at the house when they came. I sat on the steps with the manila envelope in my lap for another hour. I called my buddy. He said, "Come over." I drove to his place and slept on the couch for 6 hours straight. When I woke up, the attorney had texted that the order was signed. She wrote that my wife had been quiet at the hearing. She wrote that the wife's parents had paid the bond by the end of the day. She wrote that the wife had 3 days to remove her things from the house. She wrote that I could go back to the house that night. I did not go back to the house that night. I drove to my daughter's grandmother and stayed there 4 days. I told my daughter the truth. My buddy and his wife were in the room with us. She cried for an hour. She asked me if her mother had hurt anyone. I told her her mother had been stopped before she hurt anyone. I told her that was the truth. She has not spoken her mother's name to me since. The case took 11 months from the morning the cuffs went on. The prosecutor offered a plea 3 different times. My wife took the 3rd one. She pled to second-degree felony solicitation under Texas law. She accepted 8 years in a Texas state prison facility. She agreed to a $10,000 fine. She agreed to a permanent felon designation on her record. She agreed to no contact with me or our daughter for the full sentence. She agreed to 10 years of supervised release after she gets out. The plea hearing was on a morning in March. I went. I sat in the back row. She did not turn her head once. She had lost 20 pounds. She wore a jail jumpsuit and her hair was tied back. She answered the judge in a voice I had never heard come out of her body. The judge accepted the plea. She walked back through the door without looking at the room. That was the last time I have seen her in person. The divorce moved faster than the criminal case. It was final 4 months after the petition was served. The attorney did what she had said she would do. She built the dissipation column on the day she got my discovery. She itemized the $10,000 as fraud on the community per Schlueter. She itemized the second $5,000 transfer as a structuring transaction. She told the judge Texas law required reconstituting the community first. The judge added that $10,000 to the column. The judge took every dollar of it off her column. The judge then ran the Murph factors on adultery, dissipation, and cruelty. The judge cited Schlueter twice from the bench. He called the dissipation malice toward the marital estate. The judge awarded me 73% of the community estate. She got 27%. She did not get spousal maintenance. She was not eligible for it. The house sold to a couple from another state for $612,000 cash. I bought a smaller place on 3 acres outside the county. I bought it in my daughter's school district. I signed the deed with the same pen I had used at the courthouse. The attorney came back to me one more time on the case. She called on a summer morning, 8 months after the divorce was final. She said, because the case was closed. She said I deserved to hear the last page. I thanked her. I never called her again. I am back in the cab. I am still working the plants on the coast. I still call the hall first thing on the start of every work week. My signal hand is still off the gate before sundown. I am still doing paperwork as the summer light goes orange off the tanks. The signal hand puts his thumb up before I shut down the cab. He has been my signal hand for 6 years. I still wear the ring my wife gave me 11 years ago. I turn it on my finger when I am thinking. My daughter is 9. She lives with me 5 nights and her grandmother too. She has her mother's eyes. She will tell you they are her eyes, not her mother's. The LMI in my cab beeps when the load chart gets close. It beeps every day, dozens of times. I hear it in my sleep some nights. That is the only sound from any of this that has stayed in my head. If a stranger pulls into your gravel lot with screenshots, listen. She did not come for trouble. She came because she did not want to be a widowmaker by silence. The detective said 90% of these plans never go anywhere. He told me 10% end with a husband in the hospital. He told me 1 in 100 end with a husband in a casket. He told me he had been at it 19 years. He said he could not tell from the text which way ours would go. I keep the 8th screenshot in a folder in a safe deposit box. The first 7 are with the state and with the attorney. The 8th is the one with the wrench from the shop in our garage. I keep it because I never want to forget that she sent that picture. I never want to forget it came from inside our house. I never want to forget another woman drove 3 hours to bring it to me. She drove all that way to tell me my wife was cheating with her husband. My ex-wife had planned to harm me because she wanted out of the marriage. All she had to do was just divorce me. Instead, she agreed to pay someone $10,000 to try and hurt me. Stupid. She could have divorced me and kept that money. She got 8 years in prison for her choice.